And I said, those are the stories I need to find. Not stories of just famous people, but stories of what we're all capable of on our very best days. And so there are stories in there of people you don't know. There's a guy named Frank Shankwitz, who's a police officer. And Frank Shankwitz found out about a boy with leukemia who also wanted to be a police officer. So Shankwitz had a police uniform made for the boy. He had a little motorcycle riding course made for the boy. And then the boy went into a coma. So Officer Shankwitz goes to the boy's hospital room, and he pins on little motorcycle wings on the boy, at which point the boy wakes up out of his coma and smiles. And then he falls back into the coma. The boy eventually dies. And on the way home from the funeral, Officer Frank Shankwitz, this police officer, looks at his buddy on the plane and says, you know, we made that kid really happy for just one day. We should do that for other kids. And that's how the Make-A-Wish Foundation is born, right? I didn't know that story. I love that story too. I want my son to hear that story. I want my daughter to hear that story. And these are the things that we're all capable of. It's just the idea of what you can do with one idea when you share it with somebody else. So the book is set up very simply. It's one-page story on the right-hand page, one picture on the left, and it has Jim Henson and Mr. Rogers, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I will tell you, one of my favorite moments was when I got to share, and I couldn't tell this at the beginning of the book tour, but I could tell it now because I got to share the book with my son. Right? This is the moment. It's called Heroes for My Son, and I'm giving it to my son. This is the moment when the clouds are going to part, the rainbows will come from every direction. This is going to be it. I've waited nearly a decade for this exact moment. And so I go into his bedroom, I wait till my other kids are asleep, and we get on the bed, and he doesn't care about Rosa Parks. He doesn't care about Eleanor Roosevelt. He wants to know where the athletes are. He likes sports. So he flips through the book really quickly, and he finds a guy named Roberto Clemente. And Roberto Clemente is a guy who used to play one of the famous baseball players for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay? And I always tell my son all the time, I'm like, just because you're a famous athlete doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make you a hero at all. It just means you're good at sports. Being a novelist who gets on the bestseller list doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make you anyone. It just means you can write. And it just means your family buys a lot of copies, right? Trust me on this one. Trust me. And so I'm reading Roberto Clemente. He's in the book not because he was a great baseball player, not because of the Gold Glove awards he won. He's in it because he found out about an earthquake in Nicaragua. And Roberto Clemente wanted to get so involved, he sent 3 plane loads of food and medicine to Nicaragua. All 3 plane loads were stolen. They were confiscated. And so he's so determined to make sure that the 4th plane gets there, he says, I'm going to get on the plane myself and make sure it gets there. And he gets on the plane, and the plane crashes in the ocean, killing everyone on board, including Roberto Clemente. And as it says in the book, he's not a hero because he died. He's a hero because of why he got on board. And so now I'm sharing this, waiting for my son to tell me how inspired he is, what a genius I am to produce this book for him. And he looks at me. I feel him shrinking in my arms. I can tell something's wrong. And he looks up at me and he says, Dad, this is sad. And now I'm terrified that I've ruined everything, right? I blew it. The book is not working the way I wanted. This is a disaster. It's backfired right in my face. And so the next night, I put the book aside. I put it on the side table. I don't even bring it out. And he races into the room, and he jumps up on the bed, and he says to me, so who are we going to read tonight? And I said, well, what about Roberto Clemente? And he says, I like him. And I said, why? And he eventually says to me, because he gave his life to save those people. And I think we all know, for those of us who are parents, that sometimes the greatest moments in parenthood are the moments that are complete and utter accidents. And that's how it was for me in that moment. Everything worked out exactly how I wanted, but in the way I never anticipated.